Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I'd call the conference to order this morning. If you could please take your seats. Again, Ushla, at the Osarm of Unadan Specialta Show in Unskol Nagaliva on conference from Clor Comorta Cade Blin by an Ara Conch, August Ismisha John Concannon on Sturahor Dun Comorta. Good morning, everybody. We're delighted to be here in Galway for the Landmark Centenary Conference for the Ireland 2016 Centenary Programme. And we have a full day and following a really excellent day yesterday. And my role this morning is to introduce to you the Minister, Humphre, who's leading the Centenary Programme on behalf of the Irish people. And Minister Humphre's personal background as a woman, as a former councillor from a border county, belonging to a minority faith, has given her a unique perspective on the centenary. And all of the good elements of the programme reflect her personal background and interests: community engagement, inclusion, mutual respect, a serious focus on gender issues, and of course, the centrality of arts and cultural events. Minister Humphre's leadership this year has been critical to the success of the commemoration programme and is characterised by one word, which is trust. Trust in the artists, trust in the community, trust in all our partners, which has come through in all aspects of the programme. The Minister's insistence that we get to work immediately on a legacy and respect the political and the values that we can bring forward from the centenary really give us a sense of what's possible as we go into the future and empower us to think big. Minister Humphreys directed that Ireland 2016 Centenary Programme was designed to be an open invitation to everybody of all ages, both here and in Ireland, to join in a year of conversations, explorations, through the arts, through historical research, through exposition, through the Irish language, through education and children's events, from which a new and more expansive sense of Irish identity could emerge. The concept that we came together with was the programme will be judged not by the usual metrics of numbers of events and media coverage, and although on those measures we have performed really well, the real legacy is about citizenship, unity and shared identity on this island. The public response to the Minister's invitation in the Ireland 2016 Centenary Programme has been way stronger than expected and is characterised by unprecedented levels of historical inquiry, community activity and cultural engagement, as we evidenced last night with the sessions. The Centenary Programme has become a multifaceted creative endeavour, not just in the arts and in culture events, but also in the way government and communities organised themselves and delivered the programme in genuine collaborative engagement. As well as the national programme, there was 31 local authority programmes, and I know a lot of our local authority coordinators and partners are here today and here for the conference, and you're very, very welcome. But the outcome of 84 public consultations, which the Minister asked us to organise all over the country, and from that, there was events, over 3,500 events were organised in the community. So it's now apparent that at the end of 2016, we'll have events in every parish throughout the country and 1,000 events in 100 cities around the world. The level of public engagement and participation has been unprecedented in the history of the state. We've had really strong and genuine media interest, a great sense of debate, a focus, as Maurice Manning and the Expert Advisory Group have always outlined, on the multiplicity of the narratives underpinning the Irish historical experience. And the engagement with all of the communities around the country, as well as the diaspora, and the subsequent public response strongly indicated a public mood that is striving to find ways to be citizens, not just consumers, to combine compassion with ambition and to make Ireland our home in which everyone is cherished equally, not just our workplace, and to participate creatively in shaping the future locally and nationally. Ladies and gentlemen, could I ask you to give a warm welcome to Minister Heather Humphreys.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and I have to say I'm delighted to have this opportunity to talk to you this morning and to be part of this hugely important event. This conference is one of the final flagship events of this incredible year of commemorations. It is providing us with an opportunity to look back on the journey we have taken this year and to consider what's next. This morning's session on culture and identity promises to be a fascinating one. I am particularly interested in this morning's plenary speaker, Professor Claire Wills, and by the title of her paper, Mothers and Other Others, Representing Ireland Beyond Borders. Every word of that title has a personal resonance for me. I'm a woman and a mother, and from that other tradition on our island. I come from beside a small village in County Monaghan, where the border is just a few miles away. It was a very particular place at a very particular time, where the complexities of identity, faith, and politics were ever present, and where cultural identity was fiercely guarded. The subject matter of this morning's session, culture and identity, is of course central to this centenary year. Indeed, if the word citizenship were added, I believe that the title would represent a very accurate summary of what this year has been all about. It is the interlinking of the three concepts, culture, identity, and citizenship, that tells us the real meaning and the real value of the centenary year. The entire country became engaged in active citizenship, creating imaginative cultural experiences that spoke to our collective and shared identity, and not just to the specific events of 100 years ago. I believe that this was a remarkable achievement. It was an achievement not of government, but of the people themselves. Fintan O'Toole said recently that in 2016, official Ireland trusted its artists. I think that's true. But it's equally true that official Ireland, to use this expression, trusted everyone else too. I was appointed Minister for Arts, Heritage and the Gaeltacht in July of 2014. Planning for the 1916 centenary year was immediately top of my agenda. From the outset, I said I wanted it to be a year for everyone, that I wanted our 1916 commemorations to be inclusive and respectful. As a member of a minority community on this island, and as a woman, and as someone living in a border county, I am very aware of how divisions can enter a society, and therefore how it is incumbent on us to seek out the things that unite us and bring us together. It was obvious to me that we needed a centenary year in which everyone could participate, which would accommodate all of the cultural and historical narratives on this island, and which just might mean that instead of talking at each other, we might talk to each other. Instead of contesting the ownership of history, we might discover a shared history. It was clear that 2016 should be a year for children, for creativity, for theatre, dance and visual arts, and of course for events like these 3 days in Galway. What has always been very important to me, and indeed what has resonated with me most this year, is the social history, the personal stories, because sometimes hearing the story of one child or one person or one family can have a greater impact than the wider narrative of a nation in flux. At all times, we were guided in our planning by the expert advisory group under the excellent stewardship of Maurice Manning. And indeed, I would like to echo the Taoiseach's remarks from last night in wholeheartedly thanking Maurice for his advice, his guidance and his support, and also to acknowledge the important role and contribution of Martin Manstra. We were very fortunate to have eminent historians like Mary Daly and Diarmuid Ferreter assisting us in our work as we set out to ensure that the commemorations were first and foremost historically accurate, and for that I am very grateful. It was also absolutely essential to all of us involved in planning this year that we would encourage and facilitate community involvement. This allowed our programme to evolve from a list of formal state events to a catalogue of quite literally thousands of events across Ireland and around the world. So, how did we do it? Well, the answer is we didn't do it alone. What the government did was to facilitate and enable people everywhere to get involved. We organised a national programme, but that was only a small part of what happened. We invited local authorities to get involved. We gave them some funding and provided them with the framework of the national programme, based around historical reflection, community involvement, our language, our children, our culture and our diaspora. We trusted them and gave them the freedom to develop their own programme. And in turn, they worked with local community groups, historical societies, arts groups, men's sheds, artists, writers and composers, anyone who had a good idea to mark the centenary. And the results were as spectacular as they were diverse. And it hasn't stopped yet. The outcome of that single act of trust was creative citizenship, engagement in unprecedented levels of cultural activity, making a profound statement about our identity. We also work closely with other organisations, including RTE, and I also want to thank the GAA for the important role they played, and in particular for their wonderful event in Croke Park on the 24th of April this year. In addition to the 7 programme strands which gave structure to the approach we took for this year, we also identified a number of key pillars in which to anchor our programme. This included our national flag and the role of women in 1916. Speaking in early 2015, I said it was my hope that we could reclaim our flag this year. Our national flag had become a symbol of division rather than unity. It had been hijacked by a paramilitary force which did not represent the views of the vast majority of the people on this island. But thanks to the quiet, respectful and dignified involvement of our defence forces throughout this year, our flag has been reclaimed. Our children have learned of the peaceful message behind the tricolour. This reconnection, this renewed understanding and appreciation of the importance of our national symbol was a subtle but vital element of this year's commemorations. One of my personal highlights from this year was visiting schools in Monaghan and Cavan on Proclamation Day to watch the children raising the flag and reading out their proclamations for a new generation. The day itself was national in scale, but like so many other elements of the centenary year, it was the local that had the greatest impact. The children outlined their priorities for Irish society, and their focus was on respect and equality. And they displayed a great understanding of our history and our shared heritage. Indeed, I believe this generation of young people is better informed about Ireland's history than any generation that has gone before. And it is also reason to be optimistic about the future at this uncertain time, at a time when it feels like division is succeeding over tolerance in so many parts of the world. We have shown here in Ireland how engaging in culture and creativity can help to foster mutual respect and support diversity. Another such vital element of this year was the recognition, finally, of the role of women in the events of 1916. Women's history is having a moment, and it's about time. It was remarked to me that back in 1966, during the 50th commemorations, women were left to making the tea or playing the harp, but not in 2016. This year, our female artists and historians took centre stage. We heard about the women, the mothers and the daughters, the friends and the sisters who were involved in the rising, whether they were revolutionaries or reluctant participants. We learned about brave women who many of us had quite honestly never heard of before. The scholarship around the role of women in 1916 and in the revolutionary generation has been quite remarkable. I would like to once again pay tribute to the work of Sinead McCool, who has been working with the 2016 team in my department. Sinead and others have ensured that the female narrative of 1916 has been fully and accurately represented for the first time. And I believe this honest history is having an impact on how we talk about equality and gender issues today. Waking the Feminists, for example, was an unexpected triumph of the year. It started a vital conversation about women in theatre, which was years overdue, and which has now forced others working within that broader spectrum of the creative arts to look at their own actions and funding habits. We have made great strides in the area of gender equality in Ireland in the past 100 years. But the moment complacency sets in is the moment we realise that there is still a long way to go, because the glass ceiling has not been shattered yet. To quote Michelle Obama, "No country can truly flourish if it stifles the potential of its women and deprives itself of the contribution of half its citizens." Women of Irish history had been stifled for many decades, but now, finally, their contribution has been recognised. And it would be a wonderful thing to think that even to a very tiny degree, the conversations we have had about women in 1916 and about equality and mutual respect are helping to send a positive message to young girls and women across this country. I hope they have enjoyed learning about remarkable Irish women from the past, and in doing so, that they are inspired to believe that they can be remarkable Irish women in the future. The Taoiseach spoke here last night about the legacy of 2016. I personally believe that a substantial legacy project from this year of cultural triumph is not only desirable, it's necessary. I think it would be a huge mistake if we didn't seize on the huge level of cultural engagement we have experienced this year, if we didn't build on the extraordinary public response to the centenary. Every now and again, something unusual happens, something special, which makes us sit up and take notice. This year, I think, Official Ireland sat up and took notice as the arts took centre stage and creativity allowed us to fully explore our cultural heritage. Now the challenge is to keep the momentum going. Work is well underway on a legacy project for Ireland 2016, a 5-year initiative from 2017 to 2022, which will place arts, culture and creativity at the centre of public policy in a way that we have never attempted before. The project will be announced by the Taoiseach and I in the coming weeks. At its heart is an arts and culture project, bringing coordination and focus to many arts and culture initiatives that were started but not completed over the years. But it goes beyond that. We want to facilitate a vibrant cultural ecosystem with artists and their work at its centre. That ecosystem should connect citizens and artists and draw on the capacity of artists to enhance the quality of human experience in concrete and meaningful ways. It's an important and very exciting project, and I look forward to announcing it shortly. I know so many artists and arts organisations are still recovering from the cuts of the crisis years. And I'm pleased to have increased funding again this year, but I think now we have an opportunity for everyone across government to reconsider how we look at funding the arts. Arts funding should not be viewed as discretionary or even worse, a luxury. Funding arts and creativity should rather be seen as a vital component of building an open, fairer society. And that would be a wonderful legacy from this year. A legacy is something which is handed down from the past, something to be carried forward. And now, as we proceed through the decade of centenaries, we must carry forward the open and inclusive approach we have taken this year. 2016, like 1916, wasn't just about the Rising and the tumultuous events which followed here at home. It was also about the Somme and the tens of thousands of Irish men who died fighting on the battlefields of Europe. So next year, we will remember the Battle of Messines. In 2018, we will mark the end of the First World War and the elections of 1918. Moving on to remember the difficult period of the War of Independence and the Civil War will present its own challenges. But I strongly believe that if we take the same open and honest approach as we did this year, we will have the capacity to reflect maturely on the events as they unfolded and allow all the narratives to be heard. With all this talk of legacy, I would like to encourage you all to come along to the closing session of this conference tomorrow afternoon. Moderated by our own John Concannon, it will be a panel discussion entitled Looking Forward, the Arts and Culture Legacy of 2016. It brings together some of our most important cultural leaders for an intensive exploration of how the centenary year can reshape our national cultural agenda. Among the panellists will be Dee Forbes, Director General of RTE, James Hickey, Chief Executive of the Irish Film Board, Aideen Howard, Director of the ARC, Patrick Lonergan, Professor of Drama and Theatre Studies here at NUI Galway, and Mary McCarthy, Chair of Culture Ireland's Expert Advisory Committee. In the meantime, I have no doubt that there will be a lot of very interesting discussions today, exploring culture, identity, and the well-being of our citizens. I want to especially thank John Concannon with his amazing energy and positivity, and all of the incredibly hard-working staff in our Ireland 2016 team for all their efforts in bringing together this conference today, and indeed for their wonderful work throughout this year. Thank you also to Jim Brown and the NUIG team for being our hosts this weekend. And thank you to all of you who have taken the time to be here and to contribute to the centenary conversations. Gura míle maith agaibh.